What's up, big dog?
Hey, what's up, buddy? How you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good.
Shouldn't you be working on a YouTube video or something?
What? No, man, I just posted one the other day. I post tons of videos these days.
You sure about that? Well, you haven't posted one in a minute.
No, I just posted one the other day, I'm pretty sure. I definitely just posted one, like, recently.
Nah, man. I think it's been a little bit. I want to double check on that.
No, bro. No. Dude, I just posted the other day. Look. I'll show you. I'll literally show you right now. Way back in February of 2024, I posted my first YouTube video. It was scripted, recorded, edited, and posted entirely off my phone. Shouts out InShot. And like the first effort of many creators, it makes me physically cringe to watch back now.
A modern-day version of Disneytown could include a diverse network of districts, or separate zones, such as Duckburg, Spoonerville, Net.
That's not funny. In that initial outing, I discussed 4 potential worlds for Kingdom Hearts 4 that I was/am/forever will be doubtful to appear in the game. All of my picks in that video hold space in my heart in one way or another, but my entry for Star Wars was one that definitely carried a bit more weight for me personally. See, I love Star Wars. Ever since my dad brought home the VHS tape, remember those? Of the original film back when I was something like 5 years old, I've been absolutely enthralled by the galaxy far, far away and the inhabitants of its innumerable planets. I'm telling you, dude, the first time I saw the Millennium Falcon jump into hyperspace, it straight up rewired my brain. It really did feel like I was being transported to a new, foreign world. One with cool alien environments, awesome action set pieces, and the most gorgeous music I'd ever heard. Every single character was a fully fleshed out, 3-dimensional individual, and I couldn't get enough of them. Luke Skywalker, Han Solo, Leia Organa, R2-D2, C3... well, maybe not C3PO. All immediately entered the utmost echelon of heroes in my mind. Even all these years later, I'm just as in love with the Star Wars series as I was when I was a wee tyke. In fact, just about the only property that occupies more of my daily operating power is, of course, that of Kingdom Hearts. Imagine my surprise then, when the Kingdom Hearts 4 trailer dropped all those years ago and, in the eyes of many, seemingly confirmed that 2 of my favorite IPs would in fact be teaming up in the, well, not near future, but the future at least. Of course, this lone screenshot far from guarantees the addition of SW to the KH canon. As we know, things can and have changed from a game's production to its launch. Once KH4 launches in 2046, it's entirely possible that Nomura will give an exclusive interview in which he lays out the struggles they encountered adding Star Wars to the game and why they ultimately decided to abandon the idea. Still, we got what we got, and what I've got is a new hope. You like it? That Sora and crew will team up with the galaxy's finest heroes to do battle with the evil Empire. But what would that look like functionally? What's a reasonable expectation for Star Wars inclusion into KH4 and maybe even beyond? That's what I aim to lay out. From Traverse Town all the way to Cloud City, let's talk about the light and dark sides of this potential union. Time to engage our hyperdrives and boldly go where no man has gone before. Wait, that's the wrong series. Before we jump right into the good stuff, I think it's fair to address some concerns. I've talked with my friends in the Unverse Creative Network. You know, that collaborative KH content creation crew. The one with the website. Bunch of YouTube videos. You should check it out. Give it a look real quick. I've talked with these folks about the potential of my favorite space opera bursting onto the Square Enix stage, and a few have had some reasonable trepidations that I feel warrant at least a bit of acknowledgement. We'll start simple and talk about the difficulties that can arise when adapting a live-action property into animation. Thus far, only 2 worlds in the Kingdom Hearts series have been based on live-action movies, those being Tron and Pirates of the Caribbean. Of note, both of these properties debuted in KH2 and received a follow-up world in a subsequent game. Which doesn't really mean anything at all, but Hey, that's something you know now. These are also some of my favorite locales in the series, partly because they're two of my favorite movie series, and God do they both deserve better, but also because they were, in my estimation, adapted extraordinarily well into video game form. I'm willing to admit, though, that the juxtaposition of the cartoony trio of Sora, Donald, and Goofy can occasionally look a little bit out of place when interacting with the real-as-possible Jack Sparrow, Elizabeth Turner, and Sam Flynn. KH3 makes it much more palatable, with modern technology being able to blur the line between our world and these digital landscapes more than ever, but I recognize that the different art styles coexisting on screen at the same time ain't for everyone. With Disney already experimenting with some questionable techniques to give these characters a certain look, there's some fear that we could reach Uncanny Valley-type facial appearances here soon, especially in what appears to be this newly introduced KH4 art style. Another worry that plagues the minds of the apprehensive is the feeling that Star Wars has begun to oversaturate the media landscape. In the last few years, there's been a deluge of Star Wars shows, comics, video games, Legos, and I don't know, some weird probably. The point is, there's a lot of new stuff, so it may seem sort of gratuitous to include this well-represented property in Kingdom Hearts, especially when there are so many oft-neglected options available. I don't personally subscribe to this theory, but I do understand why those desperate to see the Black Cauldron get literally any kind of love from the mouse. Yeah, I got you, BJ. Would be nonplussed to see Star Wars receive yet more attention. And rounding out our list of deterrents is the part none of us want to acknowledge, but alas, have to. Let's talk about fans. Now, you don't need me to tell you that every fandom imaginable has its malcontents, but I believe it's fair to say that Star Wars has a bit of a reputation. Rightly or wrongly, some folks are wary entering into the fold of the Sun skirmishes because of the horror stories that we've no doubt all heard. And, it's understandable, given some of the vitriolic response that recent Lucasfilm and Disney Plus projects have endured. Regardless of your opinion on these shows, they all have their place in the series canon, and should at the very least be treated with a bit of respect from that aspect alone. In fact, why not? I know there's no more endearing trait than my complete inability to stay on topic, so here's a lightning quick review of every Star Wars movie or TV property Disney has made, just for funsies. Solid. Meh. Not it. Mid. So good. Fantastic. Not for me, but I get it. Haven't seen it, lol. Better than you'd think. Uneven, but mostly fun. Okay. Start strong, ends eh. Could have been an email. Meh. But hype moments and aura. My f***ing goat. The best. The pinnacle. All-timer. Dope. Entirely overhated. Cute. Oh. I think I'm more forgiving than most when it comes to these new bits of Star Wars media, but again, I just love the series and I'm happy to receive new installments of just about any kind. Unfortunately, some folks feel differently, and we're quick to lambast these pieces for reasons that range from practical storyline feedback to less defensible responses rooted more in personal beliefs. It's from there that the trepidation about the Kingdom Hearts collaboration seeps in. Would people freak out if Luke Skywalker interacts with Sora in a way that quote-unquote goes against his character? Would the rules of the Force be broken if Riku wields a lightsaber? What reaction would Kyrie aligning with Rey elicit? It's impossible to say exactly, but if nothing else, it bears consideration. And I want to be 100% clear here. In no way should the potential backlash from a vocal minority of alleged fans, big ol' asterisk on that one, influence the creative direction of Nomura and his team. Kingdom Hearts is at its best when allowed the freedom to really play with its cast and get as wacky and weird as they want. It's why we love the series so much. And no amount of made-up controversy should impact that. Not that I think it will. I can't imagine the executives at Square have even begun to consider pondering the potential thought of maybe halfway caring about upsetting the fringe fanbase that gets uppity at the smallest of slights. Though I'll admit, that motorbike chase scene in Boba Fett was not great. I guess I just want to acknowledge that while I get why Kingdom Hearts fans would be hesitant to open their space to Star Wars followers, I also don't think it would lead to any kind of significant controversy. Okay, forget all that negativity. Let's get to the good stuff. Let's talk about why this merger of medias would be so marvelous. Take, for instance, the characters themselves. The similarities that can be found within the main ensembles of both franchises is something that I've always found interesting and could be explored in really fascinating ways. Be it the come-from-nothing young hero who uses a sacred weapon to combat the forces of evil, a geriatric bad guy that commands legions of poor shot cronies on his way to galactic conquest, or the tall, furry, dog-like companion that spouts words of wisdom and unintelligible ramblings in equal measure, there are plenty of parallel lines to be drawn between these characters. One of the major appeals of the KH series, other than the sick fits, has always been the interactions between unlikely characters, and what's cool about Star Wars in particular is the depth of the individuals involved. No hate to anyone's favorite Disney property, but most of the franchises featured in KH only have a movie or two to their name, while Luke Skywalker alone has appeared in 6 movies, multiple live-action animation shows, and like hella comics and books. With that kind of historical backlog, there's a lot more to delve into than, say, Mole from Atlantis. As cool as he would be, I'm not coming for Mole, he's fun, I like him. Because of that background, the Star Wars posse has some fascinating dialogue options available. Imagine Luke and Riku having a heartfelt conversation about the nature of tempering one's own internal darkness in order to protect the ones they care about and serve the greater good. That's got the potential to be one of the most introspective discussions in the KH canon. Or even better, have Luke have that convo with Ericus. Make it a real Mark Hamill fest out here. But yeah, it's that kind of interplay that I believe would be such a thrilling and engaging backdrop to the no doubt ceaseless space combat of the world proper.
Is that Rick Sanchez?
After all, maybe the core appeal of Kingdom Hearts is the meeting of all these individuals from across the universe of copyright in unique interactions that can only be seen within its games. Star Wars, with its varied and eclectic cast, makes for the perfect space for these kinds of moments. And it's not just the characters, but the world itself that I find so enticing. Or worlds? It gets a little murky when one considers that Star Wars incorporates multiple planets, systems, and galaxies, while thus far, all KH worlds have been confined to one singular venue. Many assume that the forest moon of Endor will serve as the sole locale for the galaxy far, far away in KH4. And while that may be true, I'd also be down with a more space-oriented set piece, a la Deep Space from BBS. Maybe Sora and the homies roll up on Endor before taking the battle to the second Death Star for a climactic clash against Darth Vader. I mean, that sounds like one of the most, and I think this word is overused, but it does apply here, epic encounters we've had the opportunity to experience yet. Maybe, if Square Enix wants to get really crazy, they could designate a sort of district to include a planet or two, plus a space station or a ship of some kind, and that would be the world itself. It becomes hard to categorize exactly how a Star Wars world, section, district, or whatever would fit into the existing KH structure, but that's where the ingenuity of the development team could really shine. Look, they made a flying space whale make sense, this should be light work for them. And maybe that seems like more trouble than it's worth. I mean, you could realistically just call Endor the sole spot for a Star Wars world and be absolutely fine. But I really believe that the potential for some great cinematic experiences set in space is too good to pass up. I mean, imagine a gummy ship route that teams you up with the Millennium Falcon to engage enemy TIE fighters. That's one offhand example of so many possible situations, all of which would serve to make the gummy ship more fun? A mild tangent here, and maybe a hot take, but I've never been big on gummy ship sections. In the first 2 games, I found the on-rail shooter segments to be a neat little distraction, but they pretty quickly lost their luster and are typically my least favorite aspect of replaying those titles. KH3 made it a bit more palatable with its open exploration and solid musical accompaniment, but even that technologically advanced entry reverted the actual combat to guided flyby shooting combat. With modern consoles being capable of insane boundary-pushing conflicts, and modern PCs even more so, there's no reason for Kingdom Hearts gummy ship fights to be anything less than, well, a blast. Maybe slapping a fresh coat of red, blue, and green paint on these battles will be enough to turn them from monotonous missions to compelling confrontations. Speaking of confrontations, consider the wide array of enemies we could encounter in this potential new territory. Sure, we'd likely squabble up with some cool, dark side-infused Heartless, but there are so many other adversaries to brawl. Stormtroopers, Wampas, Rancors, droids, Sith Lords, even Ewoks. These are just a few of the literally hundreds of combatants that Sora could run a fade with. With so many combatants available, the Donnybrooks that would unfold in this world would be unlike any we've seen, and could be as memorable and explosive as the second Death Star's defeat. Hey, by the way, have you noticed that all my references have only been related to the original trilogy? That's been on purpose. See, it wouldn't be a video discussing Star Wars unless there was an opinion that will surely upset many watching, and now it's time to throw back the curtain and reveal mine. If Kingdom Hearts really is going to adapt Star Wars, it should be pulling from the sequel trilogy. Yeah, we'll let that one sit in the air for a second. Yep. Gotta be some thoughts on this one for sure. Okay, hear me out. This is again something I specifically mentioned in that original YouTube outing, but now that I have actual editing tools and, like, a functioning computer, let's get more specific on why I feel the sequels merit consideration for Kingdom Hearts inclusion. See, there's no question that the original trilogy movies are more culturally impactful, historically beloved, and have greater mainstream appeal than both the sequels or the prequels. The KH team, though, have always done a phenomenal job of mixing the most recognizable of IPs with some often forgotten films and bringing out the best in both worlds. Regardless of the following a movie has, Tetsuya Nomura's staff takes the time to draw on its thematic elements in a meaningful way, giving each edition a feeling of weight and genuine stakes. Even some of the less thematically rich worlds we visited with Sora have reasons for him being there, and he typically leaves the locale with a better understanding of himself, his mission, his opponents, or even all three, while also giving that world a sense of life and meaning even after his departure. That's one of my favorite aspects of these games, the feeling that these places are truly alive, and Sora's story is just one of many that take place there. Alright, so we know that the writing team always does bang up work on these worlds, but still, why the sequels over the OGs, or even the prequels? Let's talk about it. Again, walking the tightrope between this being a Star Wars or a Kingdom Hearts video, let me briefly say that the three newer mainline entries into George Lucas's cosmic canon are, in a word, overhated. Sure, they've definitely got their issues, the third movie in particular, but I personally found the surplus of caustic comments leveled at them, and especially at the actors themselves, to be a bit much. I watched each of them when they first came out, and I've run them back a few times since, and I've always felt these films to be narratively engaging, environmentally diverse, and visually immersive. They're not all-time classics by any stretch, but I had an easy time rooting for Rey, Finn, and Poe to be successful in their battles against Kylo Ren in the First Order. And every one of the three movies had sequences and set pieces that I've looked forward to experiencing again on subsequent rewatches. Many hold a different opinion, and while I really and truly do think that's totally fine, I'm just saying that these flicks have qualities worthy of the Star Wars name. And if they're good enough for the big screen, they've got to be good enough for the Hisense 100-inch class U70 series QLED 4K UHD Smart Google TV, right? Or like a CRT, I guess. Use whatever TV you have as the stand-in for that comparison. The sequel series could work as a really cool backdrop to that of Kingdom Hearts, at least in my mind. Here's an example. Right now, there's a renewed and fervent interest in Kairi, who's of course always been a popular and beloved character, but now has seemingly begun to cross the threshold from off-kidnap heroine to genuine leading lady capable of taking up arms and standing up for herself. As she continues to develop her skill set and solidify a prominent spot in future releases. Right, Nomura? Right. Who better to guide Kairi along this journey of self-actualization than Rey? I mean, you could find a worse tutor than the last known Jedi and foundational member of the Resistance, right? A scenario in which Kairi visits Jakku and teams up with Rey to fight off stormtroopers while also discovering more about the power of her heart, thereby furthering her Keyblade abilities, sounds like the kind of emotionally driven crossover that would remind fans why they love both series. It's not just Kairi that could benefit from this inclusion either. The most obvious resemblance in character motivation is probably that of Riku and Kylo Ren / Ben Solo, both of whom have histories of utilizing their internal darkness to their benefit. What I find so compelling about these two in particular is their vastly different ideologies in regards to that darkness. Assuming the KH crew visit these Star Wars worlds prior to the end of the third movie, which I'd really need to be true in order for this pairing to work. Sorry for the spoiler, I guess? Kylo Ren would be meeting Riku while Kylo's actively looking to channel the past. He sees the darkness that overtook Vader as strength, a weapon to be utilized to his advantage. Riku knows something about that from his KH-1 and COM days, but he also knows the drawbacks of succumbing to that darkness and what it can do to you. The clash in their differing ideals creates an enthralling situation that could see Riku trying to convince Kylo to abandon his evil ambitions and adopt a more righteous path, maybe even becoming the impetus for his transition in the third movie. Again, spoiler? Maybe? Sorry. There's a lot to explore with our main trio of Destiny Island attachments. And we haven't even talked about Sora yet. In fairness, he doesn't have quite as clear a character foil in the Star Wars sequels as his compatriots, but there's no doubt that our main boy and Poe Dameron squaring up with a contingent of Space Heartless would be a scene that my younger self would have literally paid money to see. And I guess my older self would too if it were included in the next game. And while the character team-ups are certainly my favorite aspect of a potential sequel inclusion, they're far from the only reason. The varied environs such as Crate, Ajan Kloss, Takadana, and Pisana make for enticing explorable areas, while the various space stations and built-up areas like Starkiller Base, Cantonica, Kijimi, and even the Supremacy act as more KH2-esque, straightforward sections. This combination and juxtaposition of wildly different settings would make the Star Wars world/worlds/whatever one of the most strikingly unique domains in the entirety of the series. And the music? God, the music. This point isn't exclusive to the sequels, and there's not all that much I can really delve into in a technical sense, other than the polymerization of these two franchises gives us a ghost of a chance for a collaboration between two of, for my money, the greatest composers of our generation. Maybe they just decide to utilize the full existing Star Wars tracks for cinematic and combat segments, but man, could you imagine the GOAT Yoko Shimomura taking a stab at arranging the work of the legendary John Williams himself? This is about as specific an interest as one could conceivably tie here, but I'd be lying if I said that this is not something that I often fantasize about. No, dude, we gotta leave it in. Come on, that's so funny. Fantasia, because it's the music one. No, it's not too heady. They're gonna love it, I promise. But okay, those are my dreams and preferences. This video's subtitle, though, is about setting expectations for Star Wars inclusion. So let's take a little bit of time to lay that out. We know what I hope will happen. Let's talk about what I think will happen. With only this single screenshot to go off of, unless something crazy happens since this recording, in which case I'll have a lot more work to do, it's hard to make any concrete claims about, well, anything, in regards to Star Wars and KH4. Still, I do believe this evidence to be pretty definitive of, at the very least, a visit to Endor. I do think that there will be at least one other location featured, probably the Death Star, so the forest trees won't be our only sight in that regard. This visit will almost certainly take place during the days of the OG movies, so interactions with Luke, Han, Chewie, Leia, R2, and even C-3PO are very likely. A boss battle with Vader would be cool, but I find it more likely that Sora, Riku / whoever knuck up with some sort of spaceship adjacent Heartless, not totally unlike the King of Toys. I also foresee some sort of space combat with the Gummy ship, something like a trench run but on a Heartless ship. It'll be similar to KH3, but more built out and dramatic, maybe even acting as the grand finale of the world itself. Story beats are basically entirely guesswork, but I do find it within the realm of possibility that Sora is present for a debate between the light and dark sides of the Force, with Luke and Vader as the expected combatants, but Darth Sidious as a dark, wrinkly horse as well. Ew. So yeah, no prequels or sequels, and the main aspects of the world largely what you'd anticipate, and honestly, that's fine by me. The theme of this year's March Caprice festivities is homecoming, and I think that kind of applies to Star Wars appearing in Kingdom Hearts, at least for me personally. These two IPs are some of my earliest obsessions, and seeing them occupy the same space, maybe literally, would be the realization of an almost lifelong hope of mine. I understand that not everyone feels that way, especially when it comes to the sequels, but I also believe that there would be a huge amount of fans, both new and old, that would be ecstatic about this pairing. Even if Square Enix keeps things relatively cookie-cutter, sticking to established storylines, with little or no deviation to character motivations or thematic elements, simply including Star Wars and Kingdom Hearts 4 would be such a triumph of unexpected circumstances that everything else would seem secondary. I mean, the original Star Wars movie shouldn't have worked at all. It was such an out-there concept that it would have made perfect sense for the film to have bombed and never be spoken of again. Instead, it enthralled fans and became one of the biggest media franchises in the world. Kingdom Hearts is the same. A ridiculous proposal that reads like insane ramblings when spelled out on paper, but when experienced, becomes a beloved and admired part of video game history. And now, standing on the precipice of potentially seeing these two unlikely IPs unifying for the first time, it's pretty wild to think about everything that had to go right for that to happen. Maybe you don't care about Star Wars and have no interest in its integration into the Kingdom Hearts universe, and look, that's completely okay. But if you were excited about the prospect and are eagerly awaiting the chance to explore the galaxy far, far away with Sora and the gang, know that I'm right there with you, to infinity and beyond. Wait, no, whoa, that's the wrong one too! Thank you so much for watching. It has been a while. I appreciate y'all checking out this very specific video. Hopefully you dug it. Recently, I've had a great time working with the Unverse Creative Network, and I'm really getting a lot out of getting to work with these awesome people. Feel free to check out all the videos that we're doing here on our YouTube channel, or you can follow us on these socials. And as for me, you can check out the videos that I've got going on here and on my socials. I really want to increase my video output this year, but we'll see. Thanks for watching. I will see you in the next one. Bye.